And then after this, we're gonna do a video about what it's like to be the balding one.
Hi guys, my name is you want to stop going. Hi guys, my name is Carissa. This is the Fat Girl Flow channel, and today we are here with my beautiful, adorable little sister. This is Amanda. Say hi.
Hello.
We asked on, well, Amanda's staying with us for the holiday, and so I figured I have her at my disposal, and I might as well make use of that for our Sunday sit down. So I asked over on Instagram what you guys would like to talk about with my sister and I said that we would make a video just talking about what it's like to be friends and siblings, one who is very thin and one who is very fat. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, what? Do I have a problem with my hair?
I was just waiting for you to be like, a thin.
A thin. She is a thin. We talked about on Instagram what it's like to have like a thin ally in your life, and also just like, I think that there are a lot of questions that people want to ask of thin people who love fat people that we don't get like direct answers about. And I want to be clear, like, okay, first of all, obviously Amanda's my sister and I would like, you know, do anything for her. But also this video isn't about like taking down a thin, you know, like making her say something that like, oh, see, she does hate fat people or anything like that. It's really about just talking about our dynamic and how we have helped each other see things through another lens, and discussing kind of the questions that you guys have asked and how to approach things. I will say, you know, like, Amanda and I, neither of us are perfect. We know we're not perfect. I mean, we know we're perfect.
Also perfect.
we're perfect. But like, this is supposed to be a discussion where we are allowed to like say the first thing that comes to mind and then walk it back if we need to. So we're gonna try to be as honest as possible while also having faith in you guys to like let us be human. So just that's kind of gonna be the dynamic. Also, I didn't want to sit here and ask questions because then it would feel like I was like grilling Amanda. So we have Jay off camera who is going to ask us questions. As the questions are asked, I will put them down at the bottom so that if Jay's not speaking loud enough or something, you guys know what the question was. Before we get started, you can follow Amanda at Girl Let Go on Instagram. She also has a blog, girlletgo.com, that she is
neglecting.
Ignoring, but it's pretty cool. What do you talk about on your Instagram?
It's mostly just, well, my partner and I live in a camper full time, so we travel from Oregon to Colorado, sometimes a little bit of California, and then it's also just a lot of dogs. Our dogs, Holmes and Tauntaun. So a little bit of adventures and a lot of dog mom content.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If you guys see us looking this way, that is where Jay is. We are going to be looking to them when they ask us questions.
Did you ever compare yourself to your thin sister growing up?
This was one of the first questions we got on Instagram, and I immediately was like, oh, I should tell everyone that like these kinds of questions aren't relevant. And I was saying this to Amanda. I was like, these kinds of questions aren't really relevant because I wasn't like super fat growing up. And Amanda's response was, whoa, hey, there were like actual, like, I noticed differences in us growing up and stuff. And so I think that for me, I have never felt like so different from Amanda. I've never felt like, oh, you're the thin one, you know? And like, I'm the fat one. I have always been, as a kid, I wasn't really fat. No. I was sturdy.
And your weight would fluctuate, and the only thing that I ever like noticed specifically was if you gained or lost a little weight, our relatives would comment on it and be like, oh, Carissa, you're looking really good. You've lost a little weight. And what I always thought was really interesting is that you were always really like dejected by those comments. Like you weren't like, oh, thank you. You know, you just kind of, I could tell like you just wanted people to not talk about your weight.
Right.
And it was very obvious to me that those comments made you uncomfortable, even though they were meant in the most sincere, or they were coming from a good place, right? And I think I sort of, like, I distinctly remember standing in our parents' front lawn and one of our aunts making a comment on it, and you literally just like looking down, like crestfallen, and me thinking like, oh, not okay to ever talk about weight. And that was the first time I had that sort of light bulb switch of like, just don't talk about people's weight.
Yeah. I think that I know that around like 8th grade-ish, maybe, I started playing like competitive softball. And I was kind of like a sick kid, I would say. Like, even if it wasn't like medically sick, I like had a lot of anxiety and stuff. And that was definitely reflected in my weight a lot, because I would go through these periods of time where I just had stomach aches and I couldn't eat. And I remember vividly going into 9th grade after I had started, or maybe going into 8th grade after I had started competitive softball, and I had lost a ton of weight. But all summer, I remember eating nothing and playing these intense tournaments in like the hot sun, and like really struggling to like eat a Snickers, you know, like, and I got back to school and everyone was like, so like, oh my God, Carissa looks so hot. And I was kind of like, I didn't eat all summer. And like, that was like the first time I was honest with myself about like, oh, that's why I lost weight this time, you know? And really just feeling like, don't talk about me. Like, I'm saying this to make it so that people are uncomfortable when they talk about this, you know? So I don't think necessarily I don't think I have ever felt like a chasm between Amanda and I about weight, but I definitely think that it has always been something that like
people project onto us.
Yeah.
Which I think is why it's interesting that this question was asked, because I do think it's natural that, well, I do think if your experience might be different if you had been a chubby kid growing up.
Right.
But very much like we were just kids who, around our teenage years, I think we both started to have like a relationship with food that was sometimes healthy and sometimes unhealthy. And then it was just the comments about, I mean, it still shocks me that someone would even comment to a teenager about their weight.
Yeah, especially adults. Like, the amount of adults who do it is just like, what are you doing? You know?
I think the other thing that I distinctly remember, and I don't know if you had said this to me, I recall you saying this to me, but I could have made that up, is that people will comment when you've lost weight and like, oh my God, you look so great. And so when you see them the next time and they don't make those comments, you're like, oh, so do I look not great?
Right.
And it sort of sets you up for failure because you're anticipating a compliment and then you don't get it, and then it makes you feel shitty about yourself, and like,
it turns I can remember, like, as a kid, it just turns every family function into like a test of your strength to like yourself. Because you almost feel like you're letting people down every time you see them if you've gained weight, like, and you kind of prepare for the fact that people will like you more if you lost weight. And our family's incredible. We have an amazing family, but these are just things that are culturally ingrained in people, you know?
Do you look at people differently who are bigger than you?
No, I mean, I think that what I've learned from my relationship with you, and also just through my relationship with people in general, is that body types are, well, I mean, they are an indicator of a person's value in any way. And also there are a whole wide variety of reasons why people can be fat or skinny. Some of them are healthy reasons, some of them are unhealthy reasons. And so I don't even really notice anymore if people are chubby or fat, or I do actually more notice people that are really, really skinny.
Yeah, I think that it is very natural for us to immediately group people, right? And Amanda is like a very active person and really likes to like do a lot of sports and climbing and stuff like that, right? So I think that it is natural when, like, let's say you were out on the ski slope, right? Everyone's kind of uniform out there, right? Like, everyone kind of has the same body type. So if you were to see someone Jay's size going down on the ski slope, it's not that you wouldn't notice. It's that judgment about like, oh fuck, is like not there, right? Yeah, like, oh, that person can still do whatever they want.
I think honestly, like when I do see chubbier people or fat people in those situations, my like immediate reaction is, yes, like I'm so happy you're out here, because I do think the unfortunate reality is that when chubby people, fat people put themselves in those situations, most thin people are not receptive to it.
Right.
You know, I mean, like New Year's, I feel like beginning of New Year's Day, thin people everywhere bitch about the chubby people in their gym. And it's like, the space is not yours. Like you do not own
That's
it.
interesting. I had never even considered.
Oh my God, it's so annoying. It's like, can we just stop that conversation? Like
people are like, all the fat people come
yes,
to the gym on January 1st.
And
I've
like
never
critique their form and like how many miles they're running on the treadmill or whatever. And it's just so exhausting. And so like, for me, I think even more so I want to be an ally to them. Like,
right.
Yes, like you can sit next to me on the chairlift. Like you can like I'm there. Like I don't want to be like, yeah, thumbs up,
Way to go, fatty.
Yeah, but I do I just like really, really like hope that they stick with it and that they love it and that they don't get like down on themselves or even like don't even think about what other people are thinking about you, because those people suck.
Yeah.
Frankly.
There was a good question about accessibility, and I think that this ties in really well with whether or not you like notice fat people, because there is a certain amount of like in allyship, you have to notice fat people to help them make things accessible.
Sure.
Right? I think the question was something like, how do you help the fat people in your life make their life more accessible? You do have to acknowledge differences to do that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, on that topic, like one of the things that, you know, I've learned from you and just from the community in general that I think is interesting is like when we go to dinner or when we go out to eat, you know, making sure you're being thoughtful about like, is that space really appropriate and really gonna be comfortable for my fat friends?
Right.
Like, and just having that awareness, and then also like, you know, or am I, let's say we go out to eat or we go grocery shopping, like if there's no parking, like can I just drop them off at the like front of the store and then I'll go find a parking spot? Like just being sort of mindful of, you know, the things that I don't even think about, like, oh, well, we have to go up 6 flights of stairs, just kind of walking it back a little bit and just being mindful of it. And that is something that you do have to be intentional about. And it's something that like, I don't think you just know like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. Right. And I do think it's a trial and error process of sort of putting your fat friends in those situations and then realizing like, oh, not comfortable for you. I'm sorry. And especially like when you go out and you do something fun, like I want it to be enjoyable for everyone.
Right.
So if I put you in a situation where I'm like, oh, this isn't fun for you, that's not fun for me either. So it is something that like you learn, and eventually I do think it becomes sort of a like self-serving practice.
Yeah.
Because I want everyone to have a good time. So I just, you know, you make those little extra intentional steps. And fortunately, like my relationship with you is very open and honest to where if I make accommodations for you, you're not gonna be like, oh, is this because I'm fat? You know, like you're gonna be like, thanks, sis.
Yeah.
You know,
well, like yesterday, Amanda was making reservations and for us to go out to eat, and she was doing it like on an online app, and she asked like, hey, when you make a reservation, is there anything that like you make sure you say in the reservation so that like the seating is workable for you? And I told her, I usually just say like 2 people need accessibility accommodations, and the restaurants just get that, you know. But one of the other things that I think about is like you and mom are fast walkers.
Yeah.
Super like they are like zoom, right? And Amanda always walks fast, and it's not that she remembers every time to walk slow, but once she gets 10 feet ahead of me, she's like, right. right. I'm gonna slow down for you, and doesn't make a deal about it, you know? She's just like, okay, yeah. And like she really, I feel like follows the pace of like that I set, you know, and I feel comfortable saying like, fucking slow down, you speedy bitch, you know, like, like Jesus Christ. And I think also that there is, with making accommodations and stuff, you know, Amanda and I are sisters. It is much more open for Amanda and I to talk about these things. I do think with friends and stuff, that can be a lot more difficult, you know? I think that opening up to someone and saying, hey, I can or cannot do this, or, you know, I need help with this, is a little bit harder. But the reality is that, you know, you go climbing with a lot of friends, right? Everybody gets hurt. Everybody in the world has something happen to their body at some point. And that shouldn't hold them back from doing something they love. You know, if you hurt your ankle climbing, that doesn't mean you never go climbing again. Right. It means you find ways to go climbing and you talk to the people you're climbing with so that you can slow down or make the trails more accessible for you, you know? And these things, they happen to everybody across the board, you know? I mean, when you had shin splints, like it was like, I can't, nobody touch me, you know? Like, I mean, things happen to all people. I think that having that like acknowledgement of this is something that could happen to me, this is something that could happen to all of my friends, right. And being accessible is just like a part of my life, you know, is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, to kind of finish it off, like I would say, when in doubt, just let your fat friends lead.
Yeah.
You know, like let them kind of control the pace and control, you know, whether you take the elevator or you take the stairs, let them tell you what they want to do and where they're comfortable and just go with it.
Yeah.
And have a good time.
Yeah.
How do you both field unhelpful advice / comments about your body differences?
Well, I don't think we get a whole lot of comments about our body differences so much.
Amanda and I posted this photo of us doing yoga together and people were like wildly kind about it. I think part of the reason people are kind about it is because any fat person doing something active, people have a tendency to
overpraise.
Right. And think like, at least they're doing something active, you know, whereas if we were sitting on the couch eating Cheetos, right. People would be like, how dare you are complacent about her fatness, you know? But I think in general, people don't compare us very often.
No.
Yeah. We're
certainly not to our faces.
No. Thank God.
Well, and I guess if somebody were, I mean, and this is just sort of my general reaction when anyone makes a comment on my body, it's just to kind of like, oh, okay, you know, sort of neutrally respond to it like, okay, moving on anyway. And it's amazing. Like I've had people make insults to my body when I've been very skinny and when I've been a little bit chubbier. And the reality is like, just people shouldn't talk about your body. And I think if you could have a neutral reaction, as hard as that might be, the better. But yeah, in terms of like you and I don't think anyone's ever really made a comment. People are often surprised we're sisters, which is irritating. Cause I'm like, really? We're the same person?
We look, it's interesting because I have obviously been very thin and Amanda's been just a little chubbier, not much, but like we actually look so fucking similar. And it's like just the weight thing that makes us look any different. But people are literally like, oh my God, you look nothing alike. And it's like, yeah, we fucking do, you know, which it's weird how as we've gotten older, we've kind of been like, don't fucking say that to us. We look exactly alike, go fuck yourself, you know?
How to make my thin friends not just think I'm being lazy.
Oh, that's sad. Let's just ask it how it is. Do you think I am any more or less lazy than you?
No.
There are so many words in our vocabulary that differentiate Amanda and I. Lazy just isn't one of them. Amanda enjoys movement more than I do.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm more lazy than her.
And I also wouldn't even necessarily say that I enjoy movement more than you. I would say that the type of movement I enjoy is different than the type of movement you enjoy.
Yes.
For example, the yoga class we went to yesterday morning is the kind of class that I need to do because it's very much like moving meditation.
Right.
And I'm more into like moving punishment, which is something I'm working on.
Right.
And just having that like coming into a space, again, like let your fat friends lead you in this sort of thing. Like going into a yoga practice that you love and you enjoy, that's movement, you know, that's just something that's more accessible, more approachable for you. And also something that like I need to practice a lot more. So I guess, and then in terms of like how to convince your skinny friends that you're not just being lazy. I wish this person had given us like an example. I go back and forth on comparing fatness and like to accessibility or like putting it in that because
you can't always and you can't never. Right. Yeah.
Right. But same sort of thing. If you had a friend with a thin friend with accessibility needs, I would never tell my thin friend in a wheelchair, oh, you're just being lazy. So there's this sort of like ridiculousness.
I can't believe you got a whole chair just so you could be lazy.
So I guess like, because I do think of like, well, it's an accessibility accommodation. It is hard for me to then equate it with laziness because, again, the example of like, you wouldn't call someone in a wheelchair lazy.
Right.
You wouldn't call someone who just sprained their ankle and was using crutches lazy. So there's this like, I don't know, I guess I just, when I started to sort of think about fatness in a like, well, it's just an accessibility need, the whole idea of laziness kind of went out the window.
Okay, so obviously Amanda is like our good thin, you know, the way she looks at things is obviously not always how everyone is going to look at stuff. But there's two things about this laziness thing that I think. First of all, what's wrong with being lazy?
I was just about to say that.
Like you admit that you're like, I want to be lazy today. And you're like, I'm gonna lay in bed and watch Schitt's Creek, and nobody thinks anything of it, you know? Whereas I do think that, you know, if Jay and I say like, we're having a lazy Sunday, everyone's like, of course, what day isn't lazy for you, you know? And this idea that like fat people shouldn't be allowed to be lazy is gross, it's silly. But also, like, if your friends think you're lazy and it's not a trait that you think is something you are, they're not good friends. Like, that's just not fucking nice, you know? I mean, there's so many things that we, as fat people, I think, accept from people because we think, well, I brought this on myself. I'm fat, so this is just what people think of me. But fuck that, that's not true.
And also I would add to that, because people will think I'm lazy, people are gonna think you're lazy. At some point, someone's gonna have a thought about you. Although I do prescribe to the general idea that like no one gives a shit about you and no one's actually thinking about you, I do think that that's a luxury that I have because I am thin. And so I blend in, I don't stand out really when I'm in a public space. With that being said, I think if you can kind of cultivate in yourself that give no fucks attitude, like I really don't care what people think, what matters is what you think of yourself, like do your best to cultivate that, because at some point, like, people will think unfortunate things about you and that actually has nothing to do with you and it has a whole lot more to do with them. And just remembering that like if your friends think that you're being lazy, that's on your friends for being shitty friends. And if you know you're not being lazy and you're just trying to take some time for yourself, then do you. And I think that that's so much easier. Like you can only really control how you think of yourself. Ultimately, you can't control how others think of you. And like Carissa just said, I would also maybe revisit those friendships and whether they are adding value to your life or not.
Yeah, I feel like people will be like, who the fuck raised you guys that you can really think nobody's thinking about you? Like, yeah.
But it is just like, eventually, life just got a lot easier when I stopped caring.
Yeah, when you're just like, what can I do?
Well, I don't care.
I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Does it annoy you when someone thinner than you complains about their body? For me, I feel like it's like those instances where somebody's like,
I feel so fat.
I'm so bloated, I just feel so fat today. And
that annoys me.
Yeah, that annoys me too. I think that we should be careful. Carissa, I keep wanting to call you Coco.
You can call me Coco.
Okay. Carissa at one point described this very well to me, and it was in relationship to a comment someone made about how they felt so fat, so they were having a bad day because they felt fat. And the way Carissa explained it to me was, the reason why that hurts me is because what they are saying is that when they feel like I am, they don't feel good about themselves. I mean, we can equate this to all sorts of things and make all sorts of analogies about this, but essentially you were saying, ugh, I feel fat and fat is bad and that's why I feel bad.
Right.
Which is a really dangerous conversation to have just in general, because at some point, people gain and lose weight, and if you can't be comfortable with gaining and losing weight, then you really need to reevaluate your relationship with your body first and foremost, and also just, again, your relationship with the value you assign to thinness and fatness. There is no good versus bad, it is just bodies being bodies.
Right.
It
is detrimental to that person too. I mean, you make a very good point, like, yo, you're gonna gain weight at some point, you know, like that's gonna happen. So you have to quit like freaking out about it, you know?
And I guess, you know, I do have thin friends who will tell me like, oh yeah, I just want to lose like 5 pounds, you know, before this or that happens. It doesn't really annoy me because if you take away that good versus bad value, that goes to being a fat person as well. You have to remember that like them wanting to lose weight is not them saying, I want to become better. It's just a statement of fact. I want to lose a couple pounds. I'm going on a beach vacation and I want to feel my best. Although then that's a slippery slope too.
Yeah, it's slippery. And I think that when it does hurt your feelings and when it like, I think you just have to make sure that when it does hurt your feelings, you say something, you know, because like fucking sometimes it really, we talk about this so much, there's so much nuance with it where you could say a million things about your body that I would think, I didn't feel offended by that at all. And then there's some things that are like, that hurts, you know? So I don't know, it is a slippery slope. Our fireplace turned off.
Oh, darn. I guess though, when I said like, I want to feel my best, what I mean by that is like, you know, if you've been giving yourself a little bit of extra self-care, taking care of yourself, for me, that does include going to the gym. That includes waxing my mustache and getting my brows done. It's a whole package thing, and things that I'm more likely to do if I'm going somewhere and I want to feel good. Most of the time, I'm not actually changing my body in the process of doing that. Like if I say like, I want to lose 5 pounds, I never say this, but let's say I want to lose 5 pounds before I go on this beach vacation. That's usually just because then I have that confidence of I've been taking care of myself. I've been going to the gym. I've been eating my veggies. I've been, you know, like keeping up with my self-care routines that make me feel good, even though my outward appearance probably is the exact same.
So here's the thing. I think a lot of people,
Sure.
I think a lot of people say, I want to lose 5 pounds before I go on this vacation. Instead of saying, I want to do all the things that make me feel good about my body before going on vacation.
Sure.
Right? And a lot of people, the 5 pounds isn't going to happen. Let's be honest, right? Like for a lot of people, the 5 pounds isn't actually what happens. What happens is they go to the gym a bunch and they eat what feels good for their body and they wax their mustache and it makes them feel nice. And then they feel nice going on vacation, whether they lost that 5 pounds or not. We are accustomed to equating our weight with all of those good things, right? We are accustomed to saying, I'm gonna lose 5 pounds, which encompasses all those good things. When in reality, what the language should be is, I'm going on vacation in a month and I wanna start feeling good about myself, so I'm gonna do some things that make me feel good.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
100%.
And you know, sometimes our friends all fuck up, right? I know that my friends are sometimes gonna be like, I wanna lose 20 pounds. And what they mean is they wanna go for a walk every night, you know? And finding ways to have that conversation with them and saying like, hey, I hear you saying you wanna lose 20 pounds. And I respect that encompasses all of these things. Have you ever considered talking about it like that? You know, because that just makes me feel like maybe I could join you on that. But like, if you're just talking about losing weight, that's not something I can get behind, you know?
Yeah, and especially if like a friend of mine were to say, I'm going on a vacation in 4 days and I just really want to lose 10 pounds before then, that's probably the one time when I get annoyed. Because I'm like, okay, you are probably going to take part in some unhealthy activities to get you to that point, when what you really need to be doing is feeling confident in your body, and maybe what would better serve you is to just meditate and value your body for all the good things it does for you.
Amanda, are you scared to get fat?
No. This is an interesting question because I have I don't know if I should like pause for this.
I'm just gonna keep it in.
I just needed a drink.
Yeah. I'm not scared to get fat. I will say that my weight has fluctuated throughout my life, and I mean, I do gain and lose about 10 pounds between winter versus summer. I think that for me, when I have gained or lost weight unintentionally, it's usually because I'm going through something, whether it's, you know, just major life changes. I definitely know for a fact that if I were injured, like if I broke my leg tomorrow, I would gain 20 pounds.
Yeah.
and I would be fine with that because that's just the reality. So no, I guess would be the answer. Like I don't foresee myself gaining weight unless it was for something where like I'm obviously gonna gain weight, or if I got pregnant, you know, something like that. But I don't know.
I think you also have to understand that Amanda's worked really hard to eat in a way that makes her body feel good and to eat intuitively. And so when you really practice intuitive eating, you kind of know what goes into your body, and you know that if you change that a little bit, you might gain or lose weight, but you pretty much know how your body likes to eat.
Yes,
and so you kind of know your set point. I will say, when I asked Amanda this, this was one of the first questions we got. And when I asked Amanda this the other day, she said, I don't want to buy new fucking clothes. So I think that there is the practicalities of gaining and losing weight are annoying for everybody, you know? I mean, it's just like we talk about like...
And I don't want to break a leg and then gain 20 pounds. Like, I don't want to break a leg, right?
Yeah.
But like, that's, I guess when I think of like, what would be the circumstances under which I would gain weight? It would be, I mean, one, if I got pregnant, that obviously I wouldn't be upset that I gained weight. But if I broke my leg, it's more like, what is the cause of me? What's the reason that I'm gaining weight? Would probably upset me.
Right.
Not the gaining of the weight.
And like, especially because all of us have past experiences, right? So the last time you gained a lot of weight.
I gained weight in college. Like I have certain things that I know for a fact my body does not respond well to.
Yeah.
And I was in a process of just like gaining weight, but really feeling like I did the stupid stuff that all women I think at some point in their lives do, where it's like, I'm only eating 1,200 calories. Why am I gaining weight? Kind of going away from that whole intuitive eating and letting my body just be in balance. And I was gaining weight, felt really out of control with that. I was also drinking a lot and partying a lot and just doing things that I don't think are generally healthy. I wasn't taking care of myself, you know? I wasn't getting enough sleep. I certainly wasn't moving my body in any kind of loving way. Like if I did go to the gym, I went to the gym to punish myself. And so that's when I really started to kind of evaluate, what am I eating? And I don't want to just eat 1,200 calories.
Right.
And I certainly don't eat 1,200 calories of stuff that doesn't satisfy me.
Right. What you know of for your body gaining weight is usually a signal that you're not doing well internally.
Right. Something's out of balance.
Right. So having a response of like, would you be mad if you got fat? Well, generally for Amanda, that means that like something's out of balance. So it would be natural to feel like, I wouldn't be mad if I got fat, but these are cues for me to know that like something's out of whack.
Yeah. And I think that like, so about every winter, I usually gain about 10 pounds. Like Carissa, I suffer from seasonal effectiveness disorder. I get pretty depressed in what we call shoulder season, where there's not like outdoor activities that I'm engaging in. So I will almost always gain weight during that time because I'm not being as physically active. And when I'm not being that physically active, I feel depressed. So I do just kind of associate, I gain weight when I'm feeling a little bit sad.
Right.
Because movement is part of my happy, like the things that I do, my self-care routine, I guess. So I, for myself, like do sort of have a negative connotation of gaining weight just because it usually happens when I'm feeling depressed. That, however, doesn't mean that I would be sad if I gained weight. Right. Especially like if I was gaining weight because I was pregnant, or if I was gaining weight because it's just a symptom of what happened in my life.
If it was a symptom of happiness, you'd be like,
sure,
I'm fucking getting fat. Like me. Like, I feel like I've gained weight with Jay, right? And it's like, I'm fucking getting fat, you know? Like, all right, hey.
I gained 20 pounds when I started dating Peter.
Yeah.
And that was just like, I had conversations with my girlfriends about it, and they're like, yeah, that's because you're like sleeping in and not going to your morning workouts, and like you're going out to eat, and you're doing all these like lovely things, and that was so worth it. And like, that's just life. Like, again, going back to the whole thing of like people gain weight. And I think my main reason for not wanting to gain weight is because I don't want to buy new clothes.
Yeah.
How did y'all learn together to be chill with fatness? Or was your sister always accepting?
No, I don't think I was always, I don't think I was ever not accepting of fatness. Fatness, I've always been like, kind of
I don't feel like we've
about.
ever thought anyone was gross.
Yeah.
Okay, like just to be clear, I don't think Amanda and I grew up in a home where we thought it was okay to just judge people.
No.
But as most fat people have, I can remember a time when I was a size 16 and I would say to Amanda, if I ever get that fat, kill me. That is
I don't remember that.
oh my God, it's a horrifying thing. I probably said it more to my friends than to you, because you probably would have been like, don't ever fucking say that, you know? That's a skit. You've said it, right?
Definitely said like, yeah, like let me know if I ever look like that.
Yeah, I can remember saying things like that. And now I think about that and I'm like, what the fuck? First of all, my friends should have checked me, right? Like, you don't talk about people like that. That's so fucking mean. But I didn't have those kinds of friends. I had shitty friends. But like, we were never taught that fat people were gross or bad or anything. But like, I think that we have not always been chill.
I will say that I think what really helped, I would say both of us realize that like fatness is okay, is that awareness of your mental well-being is more important than your physical well-being.
Yes.
And so having this appreciation of like, when I am in a deprivation mindset, like going back to when I was trying to just eat 1,200 calories a day, like I'm 5'8", first of all. No 5'8" woman should ever be consuming 1,200 calories. That's ridiculous.
Tell that to the doctor who I just met with.
But I think like, you know, you go into this like, wow, I am deeply unhappy, even though I am thin. And so having that awareness of like, just because you're thin doesn't mean that you are healthy, whether that's mentally, like you're probably really putting yourself through the ringer. And it's always interesting to me when people have commented on like my girlfriends, if they say to me, oh yeah, I've lost 10 pounds, I very much have this immediate reaction of, are we happy or sad about that?
Are
like,
you okay?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
You know? And so realizing that like, what matters most is people's mental wellness rather than their weight. And, you know, I guess for me, like I very much through like physical endeavors and like playing sports and things like that came to the realization just by, you know, a skinny girl walks into the gym. I used to do CrossFit.
I used to joke that if I ever saw her carrying a barbell and running down the street, that I was gonna get out of my car and grab her and be like, you aren't doing this anymore.
We used to do that in CrossFit. But like I remember seeing like, you know, skinnier women walk into the gym and we would go through a workout and I would crush the workout and have better time than them. And that really, for me, made me realize like nothing about your weight equates to health or, you know, like how physically fit you are. And also just like, you know, you can be really, really thin and look very, very healthy and actually be very, very sick mentally.
Yeah, I think that one of the great things about being sisters too, right, is that we can't leave each other, right? Like, like we're bound to each other. Like we went through our adolescence, our 20s, everything with each other, you know, like friends, sometimes your friends change as you age, or, you know, sometimes you like lose touch with them for a little bit. We've always like, we're checking in at least every year, you know? So I think Amanda and I have had this unique experience of being able to literally see the physical body and the person who was in that physical body and how they have changed over the years. And we experienced our 20s together, you know, like, which is a big fucking thing. Like your 20s is fucked up, you know, and like being able to see like some of the hardest shit in our life and being able to see like, you know, Amanda seeing me in bad relationships and me seeing her like push herself a little too hard at the gym and just like seeing these physical manifestations of our mental health, right? Like that, I mean, that's what you mean. You don't mean whether or not we're fat or thin. You mean like how we're treating ourselves and stuff, and seeing these like being able to literally line up what one another look like with their like mental health. Yeah. I think it changes your perspective. I think Amanda's seeing that I am at my kindest when I'm fat. I am at my most vulnerable and understanding when I am fat. I am not a nice person when I am not eating. I am struggling and sad when I am dieting. I am, like, we've seen these things and we see them firsthand in one another. So it's very easy to say, like, okay, we know what that looks like and what it means, and we know all the shit is bullshit, Yeah.
As a thin,
our resident thin.
what do you get self-conscious about?
Oh my goodness, what do I get self-conscious about? I hate saying this because I think that this is maybe a little elitist. I sincerely, and I also just want to say, like, this has taken years of cultivating. This isn't something that I just woke up and I suddenly gave no fucks. I'm assuming, though, that the question is, what do I feel self-conscious about in my physical body? And I don't have a lot of things that I'm self-conscious about with my physical body. Since I was a kid, I've had a belly, and sometimes I'm like, I would love it if I had like one of those and naturally flat stomachs. Like, even when I've been at my fittest, I've always had a belly. So, but then like, I also throughout the years have like learned to really love
it's so cute.
My belly.
It's the
yeah,
cutest.
it's so much a part of like who I am, and I think that I've also, over the years, I've gotten more and more into like physical activities. I do a lot of snowboarding. I like to rock climb. I'm getting into mountain biking. So when I feel frustrated with my body, it's often from a performance standpoint of, I wish I could do this thing. I want to be stronger so that I can have this experience and have that experience be more enjoyable. But I really don't feel super self-conscious with my body. I mean, I grow hair in all sorts of weird locations.
It's the hairiest little bit.
Very hairy.
Except on your head.
Yeah, but I have really thin hair. I think that takes a lot of cultivating. And I do think that like, I learned how to feel less self-conscious about my body because I started to do more physical sports and physical activities that made me realize like, oh, my body is so much more than an outward appearance. It actually has function, and it helps me survive in the backcountry when I'm snowboarding, or it helps me, climb up rock walls, or it helps me have all these experiences. And so I just, in that, I learned to value it more for what it can do rather than how it looks. Lots and lots of time, like learning that. And also, again, like kind of going back to the whole, like, nobody actually cares about what you look like. Like, I have girlfriends who have naturally clear skin, and they will get one teeny tiny zit and be like, oh my God, I have this one teeny tiny zit. Meanwhile, I like always have cystic acne, and I'm just like, literally, I would not have noticed that if you hadn't pointed it out to me. So kind of just recognizing that, like, legit, no one gives a fuck about you and how you look.
Amanda, what has broken your heart most about Coco's different life experience as a fat person?
Oh, that's sad.
It is sad.
Do you want to skip it?
No, I think it's a good one. I think that, like, there is so much privilege that I get as a thin person. First and foremost, I mean, just the fact that I can blend in and like I can go into any situation and have that confidence that no one's thinking about me. And Coco doesn't have that. I mean, I've heard stories from you where people say like really nasty stuff to you, whether it's on the internet or to your face. And it's just that, like, you're fortunately a very confident, very self-empowered woman who gives no fucks about those hateful people. And I honestly do think giving no fucks is the best path, because the minute you entertain it or you clap back, it's like you're giving credence to what they've said, whereas it's so much better to just be like, literally don't care about you and just ignore it. But it's hard to do. And for me, like, the amount of rage that I feel when I know that someone is questioning her value or her worth because of her size, like, I'm gonna start crying right now just thinking about it. So
like, if you guys follow me on Instagram at fatgirlflow, I talked about a recent medical thing that I had
I couldn't watch it because I was like,
like, I think sometimes being on social media is much harder for my family and for my best friends and for my sister than it is for me, because, like, that is, I'm me, I'm fine, like, I know I'm fine, but, like, it's a different thing to have to see, like, your family members have their value questioned or whatever. But, like, I think a big one and a scary one is the medical stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say that, like, I am scared that one day I'll need something and that a doctor will just, like, decide I'm not worth it, that's like, I can see my mom, I can see my sister, I can see everyone in my family have this, like, realization that, like, that's not a fucking joke. Like, I could need emergency care one day, and if someone had some kind of fat bias, it could be the difference between me living and dying. And that is, like, that's a fucking scary thing to have happen. So while there may be a million things that are heartbreaking about seeing, you know, your big sister be talked down to on the internet, there are these big things that are, like, I think where it really fucking hits, you know? And, like, when Jay and I talk about, like, adopting, like, Jay and I can't adopt. They don't fucking give babies to fat people. Like, you have to pass, also, you can't be, like, over a certain BMI to adopt. And, like,
really?
Yeah, and, like, and I can't do IVF. Like, that, like, there are real boundaries in our lives, and I think that, you know, those things is the stuff that's really upsetting.
Yeah.
Amanda, do you call out your friends for fat phobia, and how? And then Coco, my addition would be, how do you think Amanda could improve on that, if any way?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I absolutely, well, the reality is most of my friends know that not.
That I'm me, because Amanda's like, my sister's fat girl flow.
Right. I lead with that.
Yeah, that's how you introduce yourself.
Yes. But yeah, I absolutely call people out on it. You know, I will say that I think the baseline for me when it comes to building friendships is that you treat all people with respect. I'm really
Amanda's always been, Amanda's always had the best. I think that one thing that's missed from this discussion is that a lot of the things I have learned about kindness and acceptance have come from Amanda and not the other way around. And I think that, like, Amanda has had this baseline of acceptance her whole life, where I have really struggled with that. And I think I have, like, that baseline I learned from you. And a lot of people look at us and assume that, like, you would learn your shit from me, but that's not, like, that's absolutely not the case, you know?
I mean, it does go both ways in the fact that, like, you know, going back to, you know, seeing your experiences and being like, that's not okay, that's my sister.
Right.
Like, you need to treat her with respect.
Right.
But I am very fortunate in the fact that I have always had for the most part, had very kind, very loving friends who treat most people with respect. And of course, there's the occasional fat joke, and I think the way in which I respond to it usually is just by not laughing, and that usually gets the point across. You know, I'm a Libra, we're anti-confrontational. I don't like to necessarily engage with people about things that are uncomfortable and difficult, and so I will often just have sort of a neutral response. I did once upon a time have a friend who spoke a lot about her body and her weight and her this and her that. And it eventually got to a sort of point of me being like, you do realize that, like, the way in which you value good versus bad, thin versus fat is unhealthy and makes me uncomfortable. But that was a sort of rare instance of having to really call a friend out and, you know, have that challenging conversation, which I know Carissa had also had that conversation with this individual as well. So yeah, generally it's just kind of a neutral response, and I'm pretty lucky in the fact that I don't surround myself with people who make those kind of comments. In the event that I am around someone who's probably not actually a friend, but maybe an acquaintance, it's usually just a simple, like, it's really not funny, like, making jokes. To me, like, to make a fat joke is such a, like, unoriginal, like, cool, not funny, not interesting, not thoughtful, not creative in any way. It's just, like, such a lame cliche, you know, like, stupid punchline. Like, it's not funny. It's just useless. And so usually it's a little bit of just, like, letting them know, like, you know, fat jokes are kind of not funny, and letting them know, like, this isn't the safe place to bash on fat people.
Right. Yeah, I do think, like, that exactly, like, this isn't the safe place for us to talk shit on any marginalized groups.
Kind of like when,
so you know.
Yeah, when people out themselves as being Trump supporters. And you're like, not a safe place.
Yeah, not a good place for that. Yeah. There are a couple things that I think like Amanda and everyone can do to be, I think Amanda makes a really good point in that not everything can be a teaching lesson, right? But every time someone who loves a fat person or is even in touch with fat acceptance is able to talk to someone about something, that takes that conversation away from a fat person. It takes the work away from a fat person. It makes our life, a fraction of a bit easier, which is a big deal, I also think that if you are doing the work and that you have said many times you're still working on a lot of body stuff, like you're still understanding things, and we all are, right? And I think that there is something to be said for like just being reflective of what's going on. But you have said a couple times that like you've had some things going on with a relationship that's kind of new to you, that's important to you, that you've seen this person say or do things and you've kind of thought, is it fat phobia? And I think sometimes just like being reflective and seeing even like minor instances of like fat phobia can really help your understanding and can help you see where those like microaggressions and where those little things are. And I think that that's a really big deal. So I think being reflective always, of course, is a big deal. But I also think that we are non-confrontational, right? We all have a tendency to be kind of like, and I think that learning how to not confront, but instead lead by example is such a great form of allyship. If you ever are with your friends and something is done or you see it and you say, holy shit, did you see that? That was so fat phobic and like shitty. That's a big deal, like you don't have to call out that person, but turning to your friends and like discussing it is a big deal, and it can make such a huge impact, just like letting them know that you saw it, because then they know you see things, then they know you're fucking seeing this shit, and if they do it, you're gonna think it's fucked up. Letting people know that you think these things are fucked up and that like that you're not a safe place, I think it's a really great way to be an ally, and also showing public support. Like I think that we have a tendency to talk about things in our private lives that maybe we won't say publicly. And I think that like I see this on Instagram a lot, right? I get like a lot of thin nutrition people especially coming to my page and saying, oh my God, I love you and I support you and this is so great. And on their page, I never see them saying anything like, wow, this must be so different for fat people. Like I never see them like just naming it, just fucking naming that it's different. Just how you just said like, this might be a little bit elitist. That is like, that's all we need in ally spaces sometimes, is like, this is not the same for fat people, and that's fucked up, isn't it? Like that's it, that sentence, And I think that's like, I think people kind of miss that, in that they think that it has to be some like learning experience or some teaching experience, and it has to be some lesson, and there has to be like a big talk around it. But like, it can be like just naming it and pointing it out and letting people know you see it and you participate in seeing it so that we can dismantle it.
My like favorite thing a friend of mine said to me recently, she didn't realize that Carissa was my sister. And when I said, oh yeah, no, that's my sister, they were like, oh, that makes sense. Like, oh, I understand now why you are so like, do not bash fat people. We are not gonna be like full of fat hate here. Like
right.
We are inclusive and we love and like, and while it is kind of unfortunate, like it makes more sense because I have a sister who is fat, like it also was nice to hear her say, oh, I understand why you're so adamant and so like, why you are a fat ally.
Well, I think in our culture too, we like to do this thing where we get mad at people because we think that they should just inherently love everyone, right? We get mad at people who are like, think about your daughters when we talk about rape, because it is like, that is annoying. It feels annoying, like as a woman, like you shouldn't need a daughter to make that connection. Or like it used to be with gay people, you know, we'd be like, what if you had a gay son, right? Like we always do that. It's very natural to do that, and we get mad at it. And also the reality is that personal connection to a person is incredibly important, incredibly important in learning and in acceptance, because I mean, that is how we realize that we can love anyone, you know? That is like loving someone who's gay changes your opinion about what gay people are. Loving someone who is trans changes your opinions on what encompasses transness. I mean, it does make it, when we can get those things closer to our heart, it does make a difference. And that isn't fair. That doesn't mean that it's like, it doesn't mean that people shouldn't still be kind without those things being close to their heart. But it does, like, when you can let people know, my sister's fat and she's a fat activist, and it's like, that it's a big fucking deal to her, you know, and like she faces a lot because of it. That makes an impact. It really does. I mean, it makes someone go, oh shit, Amanda loves someone who this is very close to, you know? It makes a difference. And that is kind of like how we reach, you know, that's how we reach people. So I don't think we should look down on it quite as much as we do sometimes. But I think that it's a good way to get people involved and, what's the word, invested. Thin people who eat extremely healthy. Amanda's one of these people. Healthy in quotations, right? Because, because what is healthy for you might not be healthy for other people, right? Are people who are eating extremely healthy, and we're not just talking about you, this is like them talking culturally. Do you think that they're judging people that are fat for their eating choices?
I mean, from my personal experience, I would say no. You know, a lot of the things that I choose to eat and choose not to eat is simply like, yeah, that makes me feel sick. Like, I'm extremely lactose intolerant. Do I love ice cream? I do. And I choose not to eat it because it makes me poop my pants pretty much. So it's more jealousy. Like, I wish my body tolerated lactose.
Do you think that the culture of healthy eating is anti-fat?
Unfortunately, yeah. I would say yes. I think that there's it frustrates me a lot because, you know, even the word diet is very much a reference with the end goal of losing weight. Like, I'm on a diet, whereas the reality is like your diet is like
what you intake,
what you eat, and very little about losing or gaining weight. But yeah, I would say that unfortunately, I think that a lot of the healthy eating culture is built around weight loss. And that's something that I really struggle with because I love food. Like, I love to eat, I love to cook. And I also really like to feel my best. And so I've, throughout my life, sort of adopted different diets that in no way are with the end goal of losing weight. It's just with the end goal of feeling my absolute best. But as I'm like reading those forums, or as I'm online, or like, you know, shopping for those cookbooks that cater to the way that I like to eat, I'm bombarded with weight loss nonsense, which is very frustrating.
And a lot of good, bad, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
It is so, I mean, it is, Jay and I remarked on this last time Amanda came to visit. Jay and I do not eat the same things Amanda eats. And not necessarily more or less healthy. They're just very different, you know, like Amanda really likes, Jay and I do like convenience foods. We want to buy a bagged salad mix as opposed to cutting lettuce. Like we're just different like that, right? And what we remarked about last time Amanda came to visit was that there is never any like, oh no, I don't want to eat that. Amanda's just like, I'm making this for breakfast. Or like if we're like, hey, do you want to have this for dinner? She's like, no, I think I'm gonna make this, you know? And like, it's never Jay was really, I mean, I think you can attest to this. You were like very surprised at how Amanda ate so differently than us, and you never felt judged, never once, you know, like, and not only that, but like Amanda left the house to go work out every day, and it never felt like, we never felt like Amanda's good and we're bad. Like, you have a way of just like, you really do things for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just all it is, you know? You don't sit around and talk about, like there are a lot of people who are like, oh no, that's filled with toxins. You know, like every time we'd be like, do you want to eat this? You could be like, oh my God, no. Do you know what that has in it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But instead you're just like, no, I mean this. And like, because that's fucking normal. That's how normal people eat. Like, they just decide what they want to eat and eat it, you know?
And I think it's also like, when it goes to just intuitive eating of like, I'm not in the mood for that.
Right.
I'm not craving that right now. But yeah, like, you know, I'll eat a bunch of Doritos when I'm in the mood for it.
Right.
And like, I think, not putting value on food is really important.
Yeah.
Like,
So is the culture of healthy eating anti-fat?
Yes.
Yes. Are you absolutely capable of eating however the fuck you want, and eating healthy or preparing things in a way that make you feel good, or eating raw veggies only and not affecting fat people? Yes. From a thin perspective, does the body positive culture feel like an attack for being thin?
I have never felt attacked by the body positive community in any way. I also, though, what is interesting is I don't identify as a thin. Like, I think that
we've been calling Amanda a thin all weekend.
Like, I sort of really stopped putting that label on my body of whether I am thin or fat. The one definition that I do identify with is, and I say this about myself a lot, is that I'm very strong.
Yeah.
And I identify very much as being like a strong woman. Like, I can lift some weight, I can do some badass shit outdoors. So that's very much like my headspace. But yeah, I've never felt attacked by the body positive community, but maybe that's also because like I don't identify as being I don't self-identify myself as a thin person,
right.
You know? Like, it actually sometimes like catches me off guard when you call me thin. I'm just like, what?
Well,
like,
also
I
think it's hard for people to understand too that even though like you wear a size medium legging, being 5'8" and an any king has a presence to it. Like, no matter how small you are, there's just like, I feel like we have a presence, you know? So like, I do think that while you are thin, I don't think you have the presence of a waif, you know?
I'm not petite by any means.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a little different, you know, but I think that if you're a balanced human, the body positive movement and the fat acceptance movement doesn't seem like it's coming for you, because you understand that people can have their own experiences.
Yeah, and like I said, they're not mutually exclusive. Like, just because I support fat people doesn't mean that I don't support thin people. Like, right. I guess I think like what body positivity really means is that like all bodies are good bodies, you know? And like, I love the whole like how to have a bikini body, like take a bikini, put it on your body. Right. Now you have a bikini body. Like, that sort of simplicity of like, you know, we're all just doing our very, very best. And the other thing that I just want to touch on is that like traditionally thin bodies have not been marginalized or oppressed in any way. Right. You know, like I have no problem going into pretty much any store and buying clothing that fit my body. So for me, like body positivity, if it does lean more towards the like fat acceptance, fuck yes. Like I am into that. Like bodies, unfortunately, like we're not a nudist society, or maybe fortunately. But like bodies need clothes, and like if fat acceptance means that like we're gonna have more brands creating plus size clothing, then I'm all for that. If we're gonna have people be less oppressed or less fat shaming, I'm all for that. Like I realize very much that like this is a conversation that is better led by people who have been marginalized than it is led by somebody like me who's just been like, what's up, you know? Like
I wear medium.
Yeah, like I've never experienced any sort of oppression for my size, so I love body positivity because I think it has a lot of value to add for
it
all
allows
types of
people like me and Jay to get to feel like you get to feel naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that like if you're a thin woman who is struggling with accepting your body, and if you're struggling to eat more than 1,200 calories, body positivity has a place for you as well. And just the like, hey, like you're fine, like love yourself.
We're all gonna be okay.
All bodies are good bodies.
I think that is everything. Thanks, sis.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
For doing this with me. Again, I just want to say this is supposed to be like a conversation starter, and there are going to be things in here that like we said that we could definitely dive deeper into. I'd love to continue the conversation in the comments. There are going to be things that I said and that Amanda said that you're like, oh, wait, that's a little off, and that's okay. Let's talk about those things. Yeah. I really I think that this is supposed to be something that makes us all talk and makes us kind of like question things, you know? So let's keep the conversation going in the comments. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to ask. Again, you can find Amanda on Instagram at Girl Let Go. And of course, until next time, you guys, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you then. I will see you then. We won't see you then. I'll see you then. Okay.